I would like to introduce Jimmy Matlock.
Thank you, Wayne, for those kind words, and thank you to each of you. I serve at your pleasure, and it is truly an honor to do that. Frankly, it's kind of humbling. And my brother-in-law doesn't like to be called my brother-in-law, but he is. And he and I, and Greg, who is here as his guest tonight, attend a small church here in the community in which we still teach humility is a virtue. And having heard that for 58 years, it's still hard for me tonight to stand up in front of you and tell you how great a guy I am. You bear with me through that part of the remarks. And if my sisters were here, they'd be quick to testify I ain't a great guy. I'm a very normal person who cares about his country, who cares about representing your values at first in our business, and then later as I felt compelled to run for the state, and now as I feel called to take that into another position in Congress. But I asked John as I came in tonight, I said, John, when did this group, this chapter begin? Because I think I was there either the first or the second evening. That was in the, for you all that don't remember this, the old Panda buffet. I think the health department shut it down. Yeah. Not a very nice place, but it was where we met, and we were the people who were called. We felt like our country was in a free fall. Candidly, we only thought it was in 2009. Forward it to today, and you can see where we are now. But to many of you who were there during those first months and subsequently have stayed in it the whole time, I applaud and respect you. You know, as I joined with you those first few meetings, word leaked out, of course, the local Republican Party, which I'd been a chair of for 3 terms, way back in the 80s and 90s, just yapped and yapped and yapped at me. And said, Jimmy, you're a Republican. You do not go into the Tea Party other than just wish them a good day, and they're good people, but you're a Republican. And it became obvious to me, John, that the Republicans kind of left their footing during that era somewhere, or at least the Republican conservatives, which I was one of, and kind of shifted over more into this group, which I'm more comfortable with tonight than I am in my own caucus in Nashville, Tennessee. So I feel like I'm among kindred spirits, among people who know me well, and I certainly know you and have tried to represent your values at every point which I've served. So what I kind of wanted to do tonight is to just start a dialogue and hope you might feel compelled to ask questions either about current events or where I would be on a certain position or people in the race or things I may have said or done that would tweak your interest a little bit. And for those who are new, and I met some new friends tonight, I'll quickly go through my background. I'm a businessman. My father started in 1953 in an Esso service station pumping gas and selling retreaded tires. For those of you who are old enough to remember who had retreaded tires, that was his work. And it stayed that way until 62 when I-40 was opened and he was on 70. There went his traffic. And thereby went his Esso gas and those retreaded tires. So he moved across the street, went full-time into the tire business. And later my mother joined and helped, like every family business in America, had a family. And you worked with children. I have 3 sisters, they had to work. Always involved. Everybody had to kind of get in there and do their thing. And so through school we did that. I became quite frustrated with my father and his hardness, to be frank. He was a stern man, a very disciplinarian, and he believed in work and then more work after that. And so his family had to be on the same track. And I thought, boy, I can't wait to get out of high school. I'm leaving this nest. So I run down to Murfreesboro and go to college for 2 years and kind of got the impression he wasn't quite as difficult as he seemed to be. Things weren't quite as terrible in Lenore City as I thought they were. And so I come back and, after 2 years and going to UT full time. He wants to open a location and then what was called Concord. Now it's today Farragut. And so it was incorporated the same month that we opened our location there. And that was 37 years ago. So I'm 21 going to college. Tragically, he falls dead the next year. So I've got a decision to make. And that decision, which was to join with my mother. My sisters had gotten married quickly there. And so we continued, and God blessed it. And we've been faithful, trying to serve the community. Many of you have been very, very good to help us in that. So I had to drop out of school. Well, I didn't have to. That's a bad word. I could have finished. Many people do and did at that time, working night schools and things like that. But I went into the family business. My mother stayed about 10 years, and we were blessed to have great employees and great customers. And so we came through there and moved to Athens and Maryville and expanded the business. And we have today almost 60 employees, 5 locations, 11 people who are still with me with over 25 years of service. 4 people with over 40 years of service. So we have been truly a family business, not all of us blood kin, but we're really related and bound by my father's hard behavior. It kind of knitted people together. Somehow they were drawn to discipline, honesty, and trying to do the right thing and being involved in the community. And he's been gone a long time, but we've tried to keep those values to this day. So, anyway, that part of it, we've been in business. I felt compelled, frankly out of frustration, to get involved in public service. So in 2006, the seat opened, and I offered myself. Many of you helped me at that time. We were successful, and 12 years later, here we are, having served in the State House. Last August, this past August, when Congressman Duncan announced he would not be seeking election again, it caused us as a family to pause. And it caused us as a business to pause. And I sought advice from my brother-in-law, my pastor, our entire family, and we felt a door open. Didn't feel like we got a providential lightning rod that just came in and said, this is you, go do it, but we felt strongly this was an opportunity. So I offered myself, and I stand tonight as someone who is no better, in some ways maybe not as experienced, in every way as human as you are. But I feel like I have made myself at a point through a body of work and experiences I've been through. I've offered those things to this district, and I want tonight to share with you some of those ideas, and I'll be very brief with those. But really, they're your ideas. They're not anything I made up. They're not anything that came from me. They came from you through me. And I truly believe, as your state representative, I've tried to take what this organization and what you as families believe, which is we believe in the sanctity of life. We believe that we support our president. We believe that we are supposed to balance our budget. We believe that government is supposed to be limited, not large. We believe that taxes are to be low, thereby the economy would grow. We think that people have inside of them the gift, in most cases, the desire to do what's right, if so compelled and led, if so inspired and given a reason that they can obtain great things. There is nothing that I have found in state government, and certainly nothing I've heard about in the federal government, that would enhance the lives of what we all today have in front of us. We need them to actually get out of our way. Ideally, get into a different place in which they are now. And that's what I seek to do. I'm the guy who wants to see that there's less bureaucrats. There are less people who want to maintain some kind of a view of everything you do, from water crosses your front yard to the amount of forms that you fill out. I'm that guy who wants to say we are constitutionally in a country, and we kind of got away from that little book, The Constitution. I was hoping Ray Morgan would be here tonight. I was going to just refer to him. He's spoken here, maybe more time than I have, Wayne. He is great. But he kind of references that book that we have to dust off every so often in Nashville. I don't know if they even have it on a shelf in Washington, but it's called the Constitution. We're supposed to live by it. We're supposed to conduct ourselves as a nation through that, but we've come a million miles from that. I'm the guy who has really wanted to bring business principles and business discipline and values that I learned in making a paycheck, providing livelihood for employees, giving people the opportunity to enhance themselves with hard work and doing the right thing. And frankly, like everybody else in business, I know I've had tough times. I've had some down years. I've had some days in which it wasn't always great, but we've survived. And I think that's what people are crying out for. They've had enough career politicians. They have enough people who've been there in government their whole lives. They're looking for somebody who's, like the president, has been out of the business community and brought himself in and kind of made them uncomfortable. And I think our president makes everybody uncomfortable, at least momentarily he does. But that's what I hear people calling out for. And those are the kind of things that I'd like to do for you and for your families. And that's really what my simple message is. If you'll allow me, if you'll invest in me, if you'll trust me, I want to bring those things that really are part of what we do in Loudoun County. One thing that's been said to me, it's kind of a criticism, and maybe I deserve it. My style has been, up until recently, somewhat quiet, somewhat, let's kind of get along if we can. Now, my values have never been quiet. I've never been soft on the core things I believe in: sanctity of life, traditional marriage, limited government, all the things that really are espoused through this group. But most recently, people said, well, Jimmy, will you get into D.C.? Will you be a fighter? Will you be one who really stands strong? We know you believe what we do. We know you really want to do the right thing, but are you going to stand strongly and conduct yourself where you will kind of have somebody to speak out for us? And I would reference really a couple things. One of them I noticed as I came across tonight to join you here, they're coming down with the bridge. You all saw that. It's probably 50% finished. That was my battle. Some of you know that, some of you don't. But that was my 4-year project to keep that. It was paid for. Nowhere else in the world could you find a view, have the opportunity to bike and walk and enjoy. But no, because of bureaucrats, we lost that battle. But I fought for that. Recently, there was an issue in Nashville that y'all were strongly against. It's called the gas tax. It was an attempt by current members and our governor, a wonderful human being. But I felt like we took misplaced financial issues and we put them out there as if you have to do this. You have to raise some taxes. You have to go and expand. Myself and others inside the conservative movement said there's another way to do this. You don't have to raise taxes with $2 billion in surplus. And we all had this discussion for several months inside this very organization. So, along with another gentleman who's running for Congress named Judd Matheny, the last day of session, when all is to be done, everybody's to sign off on the budget, everybody's just to go along to get along. We'd already passed this gas tax. We did something we thought unimaginable. We joined with the Democrat caucus, and we said to them, hey, we've got 19 votes over here, hard conservative votes. If you guys will join with us, we'll put the brakes on this train, because the budget was being proposed. Remember, now the governor proposes, but the legislature votes. As in this county, the mayor proposes, the county commission votes. As in D.C., the president proposes, but the Congress votes. So we knew we had to do something to slow that train down. Ultimately, we joined with, in some cases, what would be called the opposition. And we put a monkey wrench right in. I put an amendment forward. We had no votes. We stopped the budget. We had 24 hours of pure havoc. We yipped and yapped and fought and threatened and did all kinds of conjuring. But we got an arrangement made for this year in reallocating some dollars into the local road funds out of what were going to be state funds. That was a $55 million change. But more importantly, we got a concept back to the administration and to leadership, and that was no longer are we going to sit by and let the governor's office propose a budget with almost no input from the average legislator. That was to be our role and has gotten moved long, long ago. So that part of it was a fight that I wasn't looking for. It wasn't an opportunity I went running to get, but it was something that was talked about very much in Nashville, but very little here. But I felt like that was a fight worth having. And then the thing I guess I'm noted for, not because I went looking for this one either, but you all kind of inspired me this time last year. Frankly, we were having all kinds of issues inside leadership in Nashville, and people said, we've got to change the way business is conducted. It's being run by a handful of people, and that's not the way it was supposed to be. So we all encouraged that we need to make a change, make an opponent to the race of the speaker, a wonderful lady, a friend of mine, good legislator, but one who had gotten caught up in this whole little small group that was just running everything. So at the end of the day, I won't go through all the lengthy discussions. I came out from my position as chairman of transportation, the third most powerful place in the legislature. I offered myself, ran across the state trying to convince other legislators that I should be considered as a speaker, not because of me, but because of the values that we were not getting heard. And at the end of the day, I lost by 6 votes. But in losing, it really kind of set a different mood in the caucus and thereby in the entire legislature, that you've got to deal with these conservatives. And there's changes that we had asked for, some of which are being made, some of which are not. But when people think about, well, Jimmy, during your time in Nashville, man, we didn't even know you were there most of the time for 10.5 years, and all of a sudden you come out of nowhere and run against an incumbent speaker, very well known and very popular in some circles. But it was that point in which I felt like somebody's got to do this. So I use those illustrations simply to say, if there is a question, if there is a concern, will Jimmy do the hard work? Will he make himself so convicted that if it means speaking out against leadership in the House, like the Freedom Caucus is doing, if it means standing up against maybe an incumbent senator, whatever that is, will you stand strong enough that we in Loudoun County will say, that's our guy. That's the guy that we want up there because he's got the strength, he will do it. And that's really what my message to you tonight is. You know me, you've seen me here, you've watched my life. My body of work is on display. And I think it's experience in business, experience through my faith, experience through my community service, and my legislative time. So I think all that together shows you that someone that's not been in government their whole life can get engaged, can work, can make a difference, and that's what I seek to do. So I'm going to kind of pause here for a moment and just ask for questions. Yes, sir.
Sir, I came prepared tonight to ask you why anybody with the same mind would want to jump in that cesspool in Washington, D.C. However, I think you've adequately answered that question. I appreciate that.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Jimmy, with the gifts that you have been given, providing that you do go to Washington, D.C., what is in your heart from the standpoint of what would you like to get involved with? Just where do you think that you would fit in the best?
John, thank you for that question. You know, my background is business, and in the state legislature where I've chaired a committee that had oversight over workers' comp, over unemployment, over commerce. Those are the things I guess I know the most about. I now serve on an education committee. It's been very enlightening to me. I'm ashamed of the news that came out in today's paper. 2 years in a row, we can't even get testing right in our state. $36 million we spent on computer systems with no clawback provision. Don't work, we're out the money. Who would do that in business? Who would negotiate a contract that when it doesn't work as promised, so what? We'll just go get another computer and spend more money. Nobody but the government does that stuff. So I want to be involved in business things. And I brought with me, John, something I wanted to share that some of you know, some of you don't know. You know, in today's news, the topic seems to be hardest and hottest on healthcare. What are we going to do about healthcare? How are we going to solve that dilemma? Who's in charge? Who's going to make the hard decisions? Who's going to ultimately get the government out of most of healthcare? And I had my assistant today go back and research a bill that many of you may have known about, probably forgotten about. But I wanted to mention that today in Tennessee, we would have the mess that most other states have, but for the chairman of the Commerce Subcommittee and a guy named Jeremy Durham. Now you may remember that name. Jeremy lost his way. He went off the rails. He had a terrible experience in his family, ultimately was voted out. And it's a tragic story. But before all this calamity happened, Jeremy proposed a bill, which I brought with me tonight, that said, in essence, that this state, our governor could not put in place, without the oversight of the legislature, any additions to state health care outside of what the federal government mandated. So if that hadn't happened, if Jeremy Durham hadn't proposed the bill, I broke the tie in the committee, the speaker was against it, the governor was against it, because he had insured Tennessee, remember, he wanted to expand it. He wanted to expand it. Durham had the foresight, he was just a young man. So when people criticize Jeremy, and he's due it, he did some terrible things, ultimately, that he'll have to pay for, I think, but his one thing that he did right that everybody in this room tonight should thank him for is he put out a piece of legislation, along with Brian Kelsey, senator from Memphis, that basically said the governor couldn't do that without approval of the legislature, and we had 6 additional votes to make that happen. So that's one of the things that I want to do in D.C. I want to be involved in why the government at any level has the authority and without much oversight to do things like Obamacare. I think this organization almost was spawned, Bob, if I remember, by that one issue. We had a meeting at the high school in Loudon, some of you were there, and Bob Corker, you remember Corker came in that night, and that afternoon actually, and came up front, and boy, he was gung-ho on stopping Obamacare. I don't know what happened, but that was then. That was then.
Got a question?
Is this on?
Should be on.
Hello,
Hi, Tim.
I'm Fred Tippins, shaking your hand a couple times, and
We spoke briefly at the ACT a couple months ago. I wanted to ask you a question about firearms, specifically if you'll answer the Gun Owners of America survey. You should be getting one. So specifically to answer that, and in general, where you stand on firearms. We can learn a lot about our leaders by the degree in which they fear an armed populace. Only a tyrant needs to fear an armed populace. And so if you want to discuss that, or in general where you stand on firearms, and please answer the survey that's coming to you. It's very important so we can grade you and we know where you stand. You're replacing Duncan, so he was okay on some things and not other things, but generally he was responsive to the firearms lobby, and he was very helpful. He sponsored bills, and he went out of the way to try to block some things too that weren't good, despite the rest of his record. So there's just general background. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Without having my legislative history in front of me to know how many bills I've either sponsored or co-sponsored, I could, to my recollection, report tonight that there's every bill that was proposed in Nashville had either my co-sponsor signature or prime sponsor. I have 100% rating with the NRA, so I hope that answers to the point. I am absolutely pro Second Amendment.
Thanks, sir.
I can say that John Harris, you know John Harris, has you rated pretty high with the TFA. I don't remember the percentage, but I think you're rated pretty high with them.
Thank you, Bob. I hope I'm at the very top. I've attempted to take the values of this community. Many of you may remember every 2 years I send a survey out. I hope you're getting those into your homes. There's a list of about 13 questions that usually we come up with having to do with education and firearms and the life issue and where the government comes. I see some heads shaking. I hope that means you are getting those. I send them every 2 years. Those that come back to us, I personally call every person. And there's inside of that, I try to get a flavor of what the district's at, Bob. They're very, very much pro-Second Amendment.
Yeah, I want to know your stance. I want to know your stance on sanctuary cities, funding for the border wall, and any form of amnesty for any illegal alien.
In 2009, I traveled at my expense to Arizona with a group of representatives and senators led by Joe Carr. Many of you remember, know Joe Carr. That was the year Arizona was facing all their issues. We hardly in Tennessee were talking about it. It was illegal immigration. Joe was right. We got in front of some of those. We made legislation changes, and we now in Tennessee have some of the most stringent laws against employers and those people who are violating the law. Sanctuary cities, we passed in our state, of course, a resolution that we would oppose those. We fought the city of Nashville and the city of Memphis, who came forward out of their councils with support of that. And I apologize, there's a third one.
Also,
Oh, the wall.
yeah, funding for the wall and amnesty.
The only pushback I've gotten on the wall, I was last week in Knoxville at a group of libertarians, good folks. We were like on many issues, but when I mentioned I would favor funding, building the wall, boy, they bristled at me. They really got after me hard. And we had a little dialogue back and forth about that. And they talked about, well, Jimmy, that's old school. You don't want to spend millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars, building a wall. We got drones and we got sensors and we can find all these people. And I said, I agree with you to an extent. The two things I would simply point out. Number one is, what does it cost today without the wall? And I went back to my grandfather for just a minute, and I thought about his farm in which I now live. And every corner of that is a boundary, be it a post, a tree, a rock. And I know he liked his neighbors. I know he invited them over as they needed things. I knew that cattle got out, and he worked back and forth, and dogs ran across. But they still had a boundary, and they knew where that corner was. And I think it made an impression on me to think maybe our nation needs a boundary, somewhere that everyone on both sides knows this is the line. We believe in enough in our own personal lives that we draw out a deed, we map out what we own. Now, we don't forbade our neighbor in most cases. We welcome them to come over. But we still want them to know darn well, you know, that's my corner right there. Don't you violate that. So I'm in favor of a wall.
Amnesty?
No.
What was that again?
I know the answer to this question, we talked about it, but you need to tell these people that you will, what your plans are about coming back home every weekend, if possible. 2, sleeping in your office. And 3, you mentioned your Freedom Caucus, but you didn't tell them you're probably going to join it. I think they'd like to hear from you.
Let me start backwards. I won't just probably join them, I will join them. Philosophically, they're right where I'm at. I'm not ashamed to tell you, I have stepped in office a few times in Nashville. You may not know, but we get there late on Mondays. We have session. We have committees on Tuesdays, committees on Wednesdays, and then we have session again on Thursday. I work until the very last moment I can calculate leaving I-40 and getting to Nashville. I slide into town, I run up the steps, and I go into session. Not because I hate Nashville, but because I serve Loudoun County and Monroe County. And this is where my people are. So when I do that, that means I'm late. Usually it's 5:30, we're going to session. 8:30 we get out. We have dinner, caucus meeting. In many cases, there's not a motel room in Nashville, Tennessee at that time of night. So I do have a little back area with a couch in it, so I sleep in that office. The good news is I'm an early riser, 3:30 here, 2:30 there. So I get up, and there's a couple other guys that like to walk at 4:30, And then we have to fight over that one restroom in the women's side on the corner back there and hope nobody's walking in where I'll get my showers done back to back. I love my wife and my family. I'll be coming home from D.C. when the whistle rings. You'll see the taillights of my truck leaving that town coming this way. This is where my people are. This is where my family is, and I'll be coming back there. That I can assure you. One of the challenges I've had, I've got to confess to you, is getting out of my own business. I've done it my whole life. And to campaign from 70,000 constituents to 800,000 constituents has been overwhelming, just to be honest with you. I go from Loudon, Blount, Knox, Jefferson, Claiborne, Granger, Campbell. So that's 2.5 hours if you want to meander the whole district. So in doing so, I'm just having to commit my time to campaigning, which means I'm not working, except on Mondays and Saturdays. I thought, well, I'm not doing much of that. There's a little guy sitting by the door back here, many of you know, named Greg Butcher. Greg is our local campaign director. So his job is to irritate the life out of me every day to make sure I'm making phone calls and going places and doing things. And I should have mentioned Sean Hatmaker. Sean is a friend of many of you also. Sean lives in Nashville, but he's involved with our campaign also. But it's been a challenge for me, whose life has been in business, to walk out of that world into this campaigning world, which is what I am doing. And in most days I'm excited to do, but there's been a little time I had to reel back and go check on my staff on occasion. I still have to draw a paycheck, Wayne, so I need to work a little bit.
So what can we do to support you, Jimmy?
Who's running the business now?
Well, here's the good news. You heard me say earlier, I've got 11 people with more than 25 years experience. Those people are trusted, they're loyal, they're well liked. I also have a 28-year-old son who has come into business 4 years ago, and unlike his old dad, he's not hard. He's really gentle, and he's handsome, as Mama says, but he's all the things that in retail you want. And he's stepped up, and he's gonna help us. But thank you for asking, Teresa. I heard Jack ask over here how you all can help, and thanks, because many of you already have. Many of you have offered to volunteer. Many of you said, well, Jimmy, we're going to invest in you, and we're going to invest in your campaign. So that's humbling. That's incredibly humbling to think that you're willing to do that for me. But the math is pretty easy. You're going to have to find a way to touch 800,000 constituents. And you do that with social media, traditional advertising, all of which these things involve a lot of money. Some say as much as $1.3 million. We've heard numbers all over the place. We were blessed that our report came out last week, and we had gotten more monies received. We had more monies on hand, but that was 20% of what they tell us we need. So the mountain is very, very high. But people have responded well, and I appreciate those who've taken their hard-earned monies and invested with us. I'm very, very, very appreciative of that.
Question?
Mine's really quick. Jimmy, how are you going to overcome Tim's name recognition? Certainly in Knox County, and I presume in a lot of East Tennessee, a lot of people already know Burchett from his time in Nashville, and certainly now as Knox County. I know you don't want to write off Knox County. I mean, you were in Knoxville recently, obviously, so you're going to go head-to-head with him. But I guess I want to know, how are you going to carry the day over somebody who is better known than you are, I think?
And that's a fair question. I get that asked every day, maybe 10 times some days. Here's the simple path. And I've thought about it, and when I didn't think about it, others were quick to tell me about it. Loudon County, relatively small compared to Knox County. Tim's a friend of mine. He does have name recognition. What he doesn't have is experience. What he doesn't have is people who say over and over and over and over again, we don't want any more lifetime politicians. We're looking for a new day. So they're really longing for a voice, and they're coming to me. But let me tell you how the work is on the campaign. I have a business in this county which y'all have been very, very kind to help me grow. We have a business in Knox County, our largest area, which is the largest population of voters in the district. We have a business in Blount County, which is the second largest concentration of voters in the district. So we're working feverishly in Jefferson, Claiborne, Granger, and Campbell to get our name out. But we have been aware of surveys / polls that indicate I've got to do better at connecting my name to the business. But our business has been here for 63 years, so we already have really strong name identification. When you circle the top 20 precincts inside the 2nd Congressional District of likely Republican voters, you have to drill that down because think about who votes and where they vote. 13 of the 20 are right inside my sweet spot, which is Deep West, Blount County, and Loudoun County. So if you put that together with the really, really warm reception we're getting up north, we like to call it, which is those rural counties, they like a business person who's also a small-time, part-time farmer who really, Wayne said it, I don't have to be beholden to anybody. I've been fortunate that I don't have any IOUs out there. That's my pathway. Now that is not known by a few, that's known by a lot in the political world. It's no secret. You've got to have the precincts where the voters are. And so I'm blessed. I'm really positioned well. That's an answer to the question. Name ID, I've got to get up, absolutely. But when people are reaching out and asking what do they want in a congressman, and they look up our little world, be it social media or through network of friends, they're coming to us saying, wow, you're the guy that's been a part-time legislator, full-time businessman. That's kind of what I want in D.C. Man, sign me up for that. So thank you. That's a question we're excited to answer.
Jimmy, the concern I have is how to work with Paul Ryan. And we hear mixed reports as to whether he's on the out or in the in, and what would you contemplate going and working with him?
My first answer, thank you for that. I'm not one who looks to go to a fight. I'm okay if I feel like you have to draw a line. I would be quick to try to be a part of a team. I'm a conservative first, I'm a Republican second, but I think if we have to make a decision, then Speaker Ryan would have to count me as one of those closest to the Freedom Caucus who would be not a party fan, I would say. I was telling somebody yesterday, maybe this is shameful for me to repeat publicly, but the first week I went to Nashville in 2007, we had a caucus meeting in the Republicans. The Democrats were down the hall, have another caucus meeting. So at that time, I was fresh into it. I knew nothing really about how it worked. I'd never been a council member, never been on school board, never been a county commissioner. I was a business guy who just wanted to help. I go down, take a seat, and I hear the leader of our caucus say, after he gets everybody's attention, takes the roll, he said, the first matter of business, I want you freshmen to hear this. I was one of them. There were 9 of us. I want y'all to hear this. The first matter of business is, every day from this day forward, your most important thought is how to get reelected. I said to the guy next to me, that's not my first thought. I don't want any part of that stuff. And so I've tried to stay removed, if that's what leadership expects us in Nashville. When I was in D.C. 3 weeks ago at the headquarters of the Republican Party, we were walking in the hallway to another office, and the guy gave me the tour, said, there's our call rooms. And I said, well, that's great. They look nice, they're fresh, they're new, got glass in them. What do you do in there? He said, that's where you spend most of your time. Oh, yeah? What do we do in there? You call. We do. Yeah. You ask for money. I said, we spend most of our time in Washington asking for money. He said, you want to be a congressman? You want to be reelected? You want to be part of this committee? You got to raise a bunch of money. So I turned to the guy with me and said, not me. I'm not in that program. That's not why I'm in office. That's not why I want to be in service. It's not about getting reelected. It's not about being a part of helping others raise money. Well, I'm having no trouble raising my own money. I don't want to do that part. So that's flawed. That's not what we won't. It's not what I think you want, and certainly not what I'll be if given the privilege to be your congressman.
Please don't ever forget what you just said.
I don't know if this is going to be a question or it could be a little bit of a question and statement. The person you're advocating on replacing Jimmy Duncan, I'm not a native Tennessean, but I've been real familiar with Jimmy since 1995. First time I met him at one of his Meet the Congressmen, and he did a lot of good for things I asked him about getting done from the federal government, postal department, et cetera, not making any great things for me, but just getting business done for them. I got calls from Chattanooga and Washington from the postal department to get something taken care of. That was very simple. And I know that from then on, Jimmy, to me, has been very quiet, but I know that at least from that time forward, the Heritage Foundation has given him 98% plus every year on his conservative values and his conservative voting record. And I don't know if everybody knows that, but he has not been one to vote just because that's the party if it wasn't right. I really appreciated his ability to be above that fray with dealing within the Republican Party, since a lot of them decided to go south of where we stand. I put it that way. I checked your voting record from last year when I got involved, and I'm really happy from my standpoint that Jimmy's running. Haven't known him that long, but just during the last election season, I spent time down at the precinct headquarters stumping for President Trump and Congressman, and I intend to spend my time helping Jimmy too, because I know what his voting record is in the state, #1. And I feel comfortable that he'll carry it within the Washington. And this group in here can carry any message to Knox County if we so desire, and we want to go do that. We can do that. I applaud Jimmy because of his humbleness and the fact that he's not waving a flag and dancing on the tables to get attention. That's what I liked about Jimmy Duncan. And I was the only person, and I'll just say this, not bragging about me, I was the only person when this other group of people were protesting at Congressman Duncan's office before the election because he wouldn't have a town hall meeting. That was down there with my sign, that was a constitutional conservative that I was supporting, #1, and #2 is I've never had a time that I didn't get response from him, from his office when I sent a letter, which I could not say about either senator that we have in this state. And I had one opportunity to call Mr. Matlock's office and speak to his personnel up there, and I got immediate response the next day. It wasn't showing favoritism, but it was just kind of moving through the minutia of how the regulatory bodies in the state works. So I know he knows how to do it. Maybe we can help raise his voice a little higher. And if he needs some bad people, we can be them.
This isn't so much a question as much as a couple of comments. One, you indicated at the start of your talk this evening about humility. I ask you to remember that humility is simply recognizing your God-given talents. So you don't have to apologize. The second thing is, I think you need to emphasize a little bit more that you are the Matlock of Matlock Tire. I have spoken with some people who had no idea that Jimmy Matlock, who's in government, is the same Matlock Tire. So if you want to make that business connection, you've got to make it even stronger.
Jimmy, I don't have a question
about Washington or campaign or nothing like that, but I have a concern. We had, in this area, we had a strong conservative in Nashville. Now we're going to lose that strong conservative in Nashville. And I'm concerned about who goes there and takes over your seat. It's not going to be the strong conservative that we've had. Unless somebody comes up, steps up, and runs besides what's going to be running. Now, surely you know somebody in this area that you can just give us a note under the table. I know you can't say it publicly, but surely there's somebody in this area that we can all get behind and be assured that we're going to have another strong conservative in Nashville.
Well, Bob, you have voiced what has been said by others, and I would just call out that there is an opportunity if someone feels inclined. The great thing about this great nation is we all have a chance to be a part of leadership. It is incredible at how the founders thought that through. It's an unbelievable idea that anybody can be that. One thing that you all do here, I like, Pandora's not here tonight, but she's famous for calling out local officials. She gets after it. And you just don't know. I've said to her, and I think I've reported it to this group, it matters. So, what I would advise, encourage, implore, bring up the folks who tell you they want to be the representative and drill them. Just say, you commit to us right now, your positions, and you vet them. Because here's where you can push that right now, not after they're elected. You got to do it now before the campaign. And I think you can move a lot of people in that direction because they respond, they want to win. There may be some that want to explore the idea of getting in the race. I didn't want to, I'll be honest with you. I felt like, somebody else should do it. I was chairman for 3 terms. I was wanting to help others get in there. I didn't want to do it myself. I knew how much work it was, how much time I was going to be away from home, how much it was going to cost my business. I wanted others to do that. But at the end of the day, I came to that piece, and there's a place for that. But take those people who want to be your elected officials now, and bring them up and make them answer tough questions. Well, what are you going to do about this vote? How are you going to respond? And this group has incredible influence. I don't know if you recognize that, but you do. You do.
Jimmy, didn't you say something about your son? Like father, like son?
I'm wanting grandchildren, okay?
Just saying.
We'll take it over.
As this thing starts to wind down, I am a survivor from 2008, living with the trials, tribulations, and frustrations of Barack Obama on a daily basis. The one major reason that I am very pleased that you're running. I have known you before, I'm a customer before I knew you as a representative. I finally have got a president who's doing things my way. Whether you like him or not, he's getting the bloody job done.
Yes.
Yes, there's bodies laying around. Good for him. The reason I'm tickled that you're running is that I believe I have in you, I have another human being, when they get to the swamp, they're going to express themselves from my point of view. And I have not had that privilege since Reagan, and of course now Trump. So, Mr. Madlock, thank you for running.
John, you're very kind, and I'll close with this. It was asked earlier, what can we do? What can we do to help support, encourage, undergird, inspire? You know, the first thing is you can pray. You can pray. And that's an incredible, powerful tool, the most powerful tool. Number two, you can, if you like our message, and I appreciate those of you who have spoken to that, you can encourage others. And this race will be won by how many friends will engage their other friends. 800,000 people is not how many votes you have to have. The vote count is, as you know, much smaller based on how many people go to the polls and cast that ballot. So the ability to win is really much more concise than what we all take it to be. So as I thank you for, again, letting me be your representative, to serve you, to allow me the privilege of putting my name forward for this job, I would just say this is something that Jimmy feels like he was supposed to do. I feel like many of you can share my values. I need you. I do. I can't win without people like you in this room telling someone, encouraging them to look into my record and see if I don't line up with their values. And again, it's a privilege to stand up here. I do this usually once a year, and it's been 7 or 8 years, Wayne, so y'all been so good to me. I just thank you. My family thanks you. And I will, if you entrusted me this opportunity, I'll vow to come home to represent you when I'm up there and to do things that would make this great country better than what it is now.